A millionaire pretended to be blind and fell in love with the maid, who showed caring gestures. Thinking he couldn't see. Before the story begins, leave a comment with the city you're watching from. And at the end, don't forget to rate this story from 0 to 10. Enjoy the story. Continue the story as in the original. It's been 3 days since businessman Jason Brown's car accident, the CEO of Brown Industries, and his hospitalization. 3 days he lay unconscious until he finally opened his eyes in the hospital. Everything around him was calm, except for the doctors' and relatives' anxiety. They were awaiting reports of pain, confusion, fear. But Jason said nothing. He only raised his hand to his face and whispered that he couldn't see. The medical team immediately started a series of tests. Flashlight in the eyes, repeated movements, quick questions. No reaction. The diagnosis was temporary blindness, possibly reversible, but with no guarantees. Jason truly couldn't see. Complete darkness surrounded him in the hospital. But everything changed the day he was discharged. On the way home, in the car's silence, his sight began to return, as if a curtain was slowly lifting. First shadows, then shapes, and finally, full clarity. He could see again. And that's when an unexpected idea came into his mind. Over the past few months, something strange was happening at Brown's company. Documents were disappearing, decisions were made without his knowledge. Suddenly there were meetings where everyone looked at him with confusion when he entered. Jason felt that something was wrong, but he had no proof. When he realized he could see again, everything became clear. If no one knew he was recovering his sight, if everyone continued to think he was vulnerable, maybe he could finally find out who was trying to harm him. So, still sitting in the car, he decided to keep silent. He would pretend to be blind. He would use silence as a shield. He would turn this supposed weakness into a key to reveal who was loyal, and who was planning to destroy him. And that's exactly what he did. 2 weeks later, Jason Brown, wearing dark glasses and holding a cane, returned to the office. He moved slowly down the hallways, tapping the cane on the floor, pretending he was navigating. Employees paused to look at him with sympathy. Some whispered, others turned away. But Jason saw everything. He noticed how the accountant hid a folder when he passed by. How the security guard whispered on the phone and quickly hung up when he saw Jason's gaze. How the secretary switched her computer screens nervously. And most importantly, he saw how his best friend and partner, Michael, and his fiancée, Emily, exchanged glances, the kind that's not appropriate in a relationship between close relatives. Alexander pretended not to notice anything. He sat in his chair, adjusted his glasses, and asked for coffee. Emily brought him a cup with a smile that seemed a bit too sweet. Michael stood nearby, his hand lingered too long on her shoulder. Jason sipped his coffee in silence and thought maybe he had made the right choice. The Brown house felt too empty after his wife's death. Their 6-year-old daughter, Lily, spent time with the nanny in her room. Jason hardly went there, constantly working late into the night. The house was big, quiet, and cold. So, the maid suggested hiring someone to help around the house. Someone who would live there and take care of everything while he recovered from the accident. After all, a blind man needs help, right? The next Monday, a woman named Jessica Miller appeared at the mansion's door. A 25-year-old single mother raising a 4-year-old son, Noah. She desperately needed a job and a place to live. The maid conducted an interview with her, approved her immediately, and explained the situation. The boss had become blind after an accident, and he needed someone discreet, efficient, and who wouldn't ask questions. Jessica agreed without hesitation. On her very first day, she saw Jason. He was slowly descending the stairs, wearing dark glasses, his hands gliding along the railing. Jessica stood in the hall, arranging flowers in a vase. She paused, watching him. He was handsome. Very handsome. Dark hair slightly tousled, a strong jaw, broad shoulders under a white shirt. Jessica felt her heart tighten in her chest. She swallowed and turned back to the flowers, pretending she saw nothing. Jason passed by without saying a word. No good morning, no nod. He just headed into the kitchen, his cane tapping on the marble floor. Jessica pursed her lips. Fine, he's handsome but cold. Over the next few days, she settled into a routine. Waking early, making coffee, cleaning the house, watching Noah to keep everything in order. Sometimes she ran into Jason in the corridor. He'd ask for something or just pass by in silence. But Jessica always felt that strange tightness in her chest. Something was wrong. Maybe it was his loneliness or something else. Maybe he was just too handsome, even when he was gloomy. One evening, while she was tidying up the living room, she overheard voices coming from Jason's office. She recognized his voice, then Michael's, his partner, and also Emily's, with a tone that was way too sweet. Jessica didn't want to eavesdrop, but the door was slightly open. She quietly continued cleaning, trying not to make noise. Michael was talking about important documents, Emily was laughing, and Jason replied that he trusted them. And in that moment, Jessica felt something was wrong. Suddenly, the door swung open. Michael was the first out, adjusting his tie and smiling broadly. Emily followed, with slightly tousled hair and smudged lipstick. Jessica lowered her head, pretending to be busy with cleaning. But she saw how Michael's hand gently stroked Emily's warm waist. She saw how they looked at each other with understanding and felt her insides tighten. She didn't know Jason well, they barely talked, but something was screaming inside her. This was wrong, they were doing something behind his back. And he, thinking he was blind, didn't see a thing. Jessica clenched the cloth in her hands, unsure what to do, honestly not wanting to get involved. That evening, after putting Lily and Noah to bed, Jessica sat in the kitchen, looking out the window, thinking about Jason, Michael, and Emily, about how she needed to find out the truth. Quiet night fell, and the house plunged into silence. Jessica sat by the window, staring at the flickering lights in the distance, pondering what she saw today. Her heart was beating faster because she sensed that there was something bigger behind all this. And though she didn't know exactly what, she knew she had to find out the truth. The next morning, when Jason stepped into the garden, Jessica decided to approach him. She carefully took a step, trying not to attract attention, and saw how he slowly walked along the path, holding his cane. She was a little nervous, but decided it was better to talk to him directly. "Good morning, Mr. Brown," she said softly, stopping nearby. "I'd like to talk to you, if you don't mind." He turned his head toward her, and Jessica saw something unusual flicker in his eyes, a mix of curiosity and fatigue. "Oh, hello, Miss Miller," he replied softly, almost whispering. "What's on your mind?" Jessica took a breath, gathering her thoughts. "I noticed something's not right. I was a witness to a conversation between Michael and Emily last night, and I think they're hiding something. I don't want to interfere, but I believe you should know the truth." Jason looked at her for a long moment. His face remained calm, but inside he felt something shift. He took off his dark glasses and slightly raised his eyebrows. "Thank you, Jessica. I appreciate your honesty. I've also had some suspicions, and maybe you should help me a little," he said softly, with a note of determination. "We need to find out everything completely." Jessica nodded, feeling that this day would be an important step toward uncovering the truth. A spark of hope lit inside her that she could help Jason get back everything stolen from him, even if it meant risking everything.